Welcome to another Figuring Out Japan video, and this video is going to be a very different video. There's not really going to be any exciting visuals, so this is more something just to listen to rather than watch if you're interested. But the purpose of this video is twofold. The first is that if you are new to the channel, or even if you followed the channel for a long time, you would have noticed some changes, and so by kind of sharing this history, you'll understand the background of the channel and how it is to where it is today. And then as a precursor to that is what actually happened to Figuring Out Japan, because there are a lot of people who have supported us over the years, and I guess Figuring Out Japan just kind of, in some ways, just sort of disappeared. So it's taken me it's been 4 years now, more than 4 years actually. It's quite a traumatic thing. It's not easy to talk about, but I think it's a good time to kind of open the lid. And in some ways, this is a bit of a eulogy to Figuring Out Japan. I mean, I still consider it kind of alive, but certainly not alive and well. And I think in reality, it doesn't function as a business anymore. So firstly, what is Figuring Out Japan? So when I was growing up, I loved Dragon Ball. And with Dragon Ball, there are these books called the Daizenshu. There's these 7 books that cover different parts of the show. And I wanted to collect these books. Now, they were very, very hard to get. They would come up online maybe once every few months. And even then, they would usually be one at a time. And so I bought these books, and I paid, and this was kind of in the early 2000s, I paid over, I paid I think around 60 Australian dollars, which in today's money is probably like 70, 80 Australian dollars each, right? So even as a young kid, that was a lot of money. I spent like, $500 or something getting these books. And years later, I moved to Japan, and I found these books, and I realized they're actually not that rare if you know where to look, and they're also really cheap. So I thought, well, hang on, I could purchase these in Japan, even after selling fees and postage fees and everything. I could still make a bit of money to make it worth my while, and I could still sell it far cheaper than what I paid for them. So everybody wins. And so that's what I started doing. I started going to these shops in Japan and just buying stuff and listing it online. And that was how Figuring Out Japan started. And of course, I love this sort of stuff. It was a good excuse to go shopping. It was a great outcome for consumers because they were getting, top quality stuff from Japan at good prices. And also I knew what it was like as a consumer and what I expected, and obviously collectors, they really want things in good condition. So we really started as a more figurine business, exporting figurines from Japan. And over the years, that just grew and grew and grew, and we expanded into other products. We started selling, as you can see up on the screen, all sorts of different products and things. So the business was growing massively, and it grew year on year on year. And we ended up being the largest exporter out of Japan to overseas countries. We sent to roughly about 130 different countries. Our main markets were the UK, America, Australia, different parts of Europe. But we even sent to countries that I have to admit I'd never even heard of, places like Reunion and, just all corners of the world. It was great. So what happened? And I mean, I could talk about that maybe in a separate video about, if people are interested, leave a comment, how to build a successful, I could say e-commerce store, but I mean, really to me, it's selling is selling, right? Whether it's bricks and mortar or obviously there's different nuances. But this video, I really wanted to focus on kind of the sad bits, I guess, the ending. So what happened? I'll fast forward to the end of 2018, and things were going really fantastic. The new Dragon Ball Super, the Broly film had come out. People were just buying stuff left, right, and center. Our other parts, our non-figurine part of the business, was doing really well. And the biggest problem that we had was the best problem you could have, which is we were just selling too much stuff. And so businesses are a little bit like hermit crabs, they grow, and then you need to adapt and evolve to that. And you kind of need to set it up for bigger than what it is, because it's naturally going to grow into that shell, right? So I finished 2018, to be quite honest with you, really burnt out. I remember actually Christmas Day 2018, I spent the whole day just fulfilling orders. I made 3 separate trips to the to the post, and yeah, it was just kind of a bit burnt out and thinking. I actually then had a holiday, and I really, I needed to just switch off for a little bit. But of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what do we do 2019? How do we continue to grow this? We really need to make some big investments to continue to evolve the business. And so I went on holiday, and I came back, and I remember I was at the airport on the stopover, and I saw this email from PayPal saying they had frozen our account. No reason was given, no explanation. They were just demanding a lot of information. And to this day, I don't know why they did it. I have 2 theories. The first theory, which it could be, but I don't know. I don't think so, given the second theory, is that we were just really big. And so they wanted to know, like, I guess, do their due diligence, right? Because if you're dealing with a lot of money, they want to know, like, who you are and what you're doing, etc. But we'd been doing business on PayPal for a very, very long time. We'd had the account for, gosh, close to 20 years, I think. And yeah, it just didn't really make sense. The second reason, which is what I think is what happened, is they were just trying to intimidate us and bully us and show us who's boss. And the reason is, and I'm very careful not to turn this into a rant video, but essentially, when you deal with very large volumes, inevitably there are going to be people who do the wrong thing, particularly when you're selling stuff like collectibles or high value items like cosmetics or watches or stuff like that, right? You become a target for people who want to steal stuff. And as somebody myself who knows eBay policy and PayPal policy intricately, there are a lot of loopholes that buyers can take advantage of. And I'll just give one simple example. The whole tracking situation, right? Now, in Japan, you have to pay extra for tracking. It's about it was anyway when we were doing it, it was about $5 just for the tracking, not shipping, right? So if you're sending an item that's in total value, including shipping, everything is like $20, $25. If you put tracking on it, then you've blown your profit, right? And it's not worth it. It's not worth spending hundreds of dollars a month just on tracking, right? Especially for lower value items. And we would always give buyers the option, right? We'd say, yeah, if you want tracking, it's an extra $5. But of course, most people don't do that. And it's risky because then you're kind of telling people you don't have tracking. And people know, hey, if you don't have a tracking number, the seller can't prove that you got it. But even if you do have tracking, right, there are countries out there. So for example, Australia had the genius idea, and I'm being sarcastic, to say that actually it's a breach of people's privacy if you can see a tracking number, right? Because if you know the tracking number, anyone can look up this information. But how would anybody know the tracking number, right? And even if they did, there's no information there. It just says that a package was delivered to this address on this day. You don't know where, you might know what country it's come from, but you don't know what the item is. You don't even know who the recipient is. There's really no privacy issues. But Australia Post decided that it was, and so if you put the tracking number in, you can't see anything. It would just say, it left Japan and that's it. You don't see anything on the Australia side. Now, if you went into an Australia Post branch, they could look it up in their internal system, but that's useless for a company like PayPal or eBay, who they want to go to a tracking page and they want to see something, right? They want to see it delivered. There are also countries like Canada who Canada Post one day said, and they even said on their website, pretty much in these words, there's just so much international mail that's coming, especially from places like China. We just can't deal with it. We're not going to track stuff. So you send something to Canada, can't track it. There's even other quirks, like we had, as a simple example, we had a customer who said, they didn't get the item. The tracking number showed it was delivered. There was a photo of the package, and the post, I guess, left it at the door. And, eBay said, oh no, it's policy that, that's not considered delivered. And we said, well, where in your policy does it say that? Oh, it's an internal policy. Okay, well, what's the name of this internal policy? Oh, well, we can't give that information. Well, which section of this policy are you referring to? Oh, we can't give this information. And then I said, well, how can you enforce a policy if the sellers have never agreed to the terms and conditions? How is that an enforceable policy, right? So they're just lying, completely lying, right? Now, the quirk with PayPal with these sort of things is that, so eBay, you have to prove final delivery. PayPal, and even then there's ways around it, right, that buyers can do. But with PayPal, you just have to prove that you sent it, because PayPal, and they use this heavily in their advertising, there's also seller protection, right? It's not just buyer protection, right? Sellers can get defrauded as well. They can get, they can be the victims of theft just as much as buyers, right? And so what happens is, if you have a buyer who says, I didn't get the item, and seller says, okay, well, we need to give the seller an opportunity to respond. And the seller says, well, hey, here's a tracking number. I sent the item. Here's all the information. Then the seller is protected. And if it doesn't show final delivery, the buyer is also protected. So what should happen in these instances is that PayPal should cover it, okay, out of their pocket. And that's why you pay fees to PayPal, right? It's kind of almost an insurance policy. But PayPal would just refund the buyer and say, tough luck to the seller. And we would say, well, actually, hang on, your policy says this. We should be covered. We shouldn't be out of pocket. We did everything that we could. And for us, we could take an agnostic view. The buyer could be lying, could have been stolen, could have gone missing. And look, I am skeptical. I have literally sent like hundreds of thousands of items overseas. It is extremely rare. I cannot emphasize enough how rare it is that stuff goes missing. Why should it? As long as you get the address right, why should stuff go missing? And if stuff does allegedly go missing, it should come back to Japan as undelivered, which would occasionally happen, right? So we would kind of appeal it, and PayPal would say, no, tough luck, So what we would do is, because PayPal, they're not really a bank because they don't make loans, but because they essentially handle deposits, right? They don't pay any interest because they're tight asses, but they handle deposits, right? So PayPal is what's known as an ADI, an authorized deposit taking institution. It's kind of a fancy way of saying a bank. So they're kind of a bank. What's important is that they are regulated by the financial ombudsman, right? So then we would make a complaint to the financial ombudsman, because banks are really important, right? If they do something dodgy, and you could lose your life savings, right? So there's a lot of consumer protection with ADIs and banks and insurance companies. So we would lodge a complaint with the financial ombudsman, and we'd say, look, PayPal have breached their terms and conditions because we proved that we sent this item, and irrespective of what happened to it, we should be covered as per their own seller protection policies. And PayPal would know that they were going to lose that case. They knew exactly what they were doing, right? So they'd kind of go, oh, gee, this person's switched on. They know our policies. They know what laws are in place to protect them. So they would turn around and say something like, well, we didn't do anything wrong, and we're not acknowledging we did anything wrong, but because you're such a good customer, as a gesture of goodwill, we'll reimburse you. And this started to happen more and more because more and more people started to figure out that there were, let's say, loopholes. And then also as a business, if you're selling 1,000 products a week, right, and 1% of your customers do the wrong thing, and believe me, it's more than 1% in practice. Let's say it's 5% of customers who do the wrong thing. That's 50 cases a week that you're going to have. So it becomes you can look at it in percentage terms, but you can also look at it in absolute terms. And so I think PayPal, this is my theory, and I don't know, they kind of they just wanted to show us who was boss. So they were asking for all this information. We would provide the information. We'd get an automated response saying they're going to give us a response within 48 hours. They would wait a week or 2 weeks, and they'd come back and they'd ask for more information, and they just dragged it out. They dragged it out for about a month, which was pretty scary because actually for us, January and February are usually the busiest months. Before Christmas was busy, but after Christmas, people on holiday, they're cashed up. That's when a lot of people would spend. So we're making all these sales, we've got all this money coming into to PayPal account, but we can't get any money out. And it started to look like, gee, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to get it out. And then that becomes an issue because we start having this like kind of cash flow crunch because we got to pay salaries, we got to pay suppliers, and all our money's tied up. So it did get to the point where we actually had to kind of temporarily shut the business because we didn't want to take any more sales because we didn't know whether we were ever going to get the money. Long story short, well, I've kind of made it a long story, but eventually, PayPal did allow us to continue to use the account. Never received any explanation. Couldn't get answers, right? We tried, we spoke to the call center, we spoke to the management in America, just couldn't get answers. They're bullies. They're assholes. I'm going to call it what it is. And yeah, so the whole thing was just incredibly unnerving because remember, we're at a point where we're going, right, we need to really invest a lot of money in the business to allow it to continue to function, and everything could just be wiped out without a moment's notice or any explanation or any dialogue. So that was, I guess, sort of a sign perhaps of things to come. So then a month later, this is February 2019, we discovered a really serious issue on eBay. And I'm going to get a bit technical. I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. But what happens with eBay is that if you purchase an item, it will give you a estimated delivery time, right? It will say, it's going to take 5 days or it's going to take 3 weeks, right? And we would always under promise, over deliver. Now, the seller doesn't stipulate the delivery time. They can state their handling time, they can state which shipping method they use, then it goes into the eBay algorithm and they spit out the time. So we would put in all the inputs that gave us the longest shipping time we could, because again, we wanted to under promise, over deliver, right? So we'd say, it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks and it would arrive in 2 weeks, right? And customers happy. Remember, this is international shipping. And the estimated shipping time is really important because buyers can't open a case, for example, item not received case, until that period has expired. Now, in February 2019, we realized, and we didn't change anything, that the shipping times was saying 3 to 5 days. There is pretty much no way you can get something from Japan to, say, America in 3 to 5 days, unless you use like a really expensive, courier service. Not going to happen. And again, we didn't change anything. So we contacted eBay. We said, look, there's this issue going on. eBay acknowledged it. They said, yeah, we can see that shouldn't be happening. We'll let the IT department know and they'll get onto it. In the meantime, every single sale, right? We're contacting buyers. We're saying, please, ignore the estimated shipping time. It's not accurate. It's going to take a month. If you want to cancel the item, we'll refund you in full, no problem. And it's a really bad look for customers because a lot of customers probably didn't even really take notice of it. And now they're getting this message saying, oh, actually, there's this kind of dodgy thing where we're saying it's 3 to 5 days and actually it's going to take a month, even though realistically it might take 2 weeks. So we were like, pedaling like crazy just to handle and manage this issue. And we would follow up with eBay weekly. The issue's still there. Why hasn't it been fixed? The issue is still there. Why hasn't it been fixed, right? And we just weren't getting answers from eBay. They weren't fixing it. This dragged on for 2 months. Now, the problem is that, and this is another, there's all these kind of rabbit holes that I have to go down to, but eBay really want to make sure that customers kind of feel like they're buying from eBay. You're not. You're buying from people like us. We're the ones who supply the product. We're the ones who provide the customer service, right? But eBay wants you to think you're buying from eBay. And I challenge you, the last thing you bought on eBay, name the seller. Do you remember the seller's name? I'd say most people wouldn't. They just go, hey, I bought this item from eBay. And so what eBay really do is they try and blackmail and bully sellers into doing exactly what they want. And one of those things is to get the top rated seller status. Now, to get a top rated seller status, you had to, at least when we were operating, might have changed, I don't know, but you had to have less than 0.3% defects. So what that means is that if you make 1,000 transactions a month, or in any period, right? Let's take 1,000 transactions. You had to have less than 0.3%. That's less than 3 cases open against you. So basically 1 or 2. On the third one, boom, you lose your top rated seller status. Then all your listings perform worse, your sales drop, etc. That's just if a buyer opens a case. So a buyer could open a case and say, didn't receive the item. You could refund them instantly. That defect is still on your account. It's not a negative feedback. It's not something that people can see externally, right? But it's a defect on your account. Now we have this issue where we're making all these transactions and the shipping time is wrong. And even we're telling people, hey, it's wrong. But inevitably, you still have a very small proportion. We're talking, again, 0.3, not 3%, 0.3%. 3 in 1,000. And so inevitably our defects started to increase, right? And we had immaculate account, right? No negative feedbacks, no defects, immaculate account, right? But inevitably, because of this issue, the defects started to rise, right? And I think it got up to like 0.5 or 0.6%, right? Like 5 or 6 out of 1,000. And I think, again, no explanation was ever provided, but I think it was because of that in April. I remember it was a Sunday and I realized, oh, we didn't make any sales this weekend. That's weird, because weekends are always a bit busier. And then I went to our store and realized there was no items there. And I'm going, what's going on? So I checked the email. And we get this email from eBay saying they've shut the store down. No warning, no explanation, no dialogue. It was like, we're going to chop your head off and then we're going to ask questions. Now, what's important about this is they shut everything down, right? So we had listings that had been up for years, had like hundreds of sales. So eBay, the algorithm knows, hey, this is a good selling item. It's got history. It gives buyers confidence. They go to the page. They can see, 100 people have bought this. Once you end a listing, it's gone. You can relist it, but it's a different hyperlink. It's a different item number. You lose all the sales history. So they did this for our entire store, right? Tens of thousands of items. Wow. Like, really? Are you for real, eBay? So we thought long and hard about, how do we deal with this situation? We did a lot of research into it, and in the end, we wrote eBay a letter, and essentially we did ass kissing, right? We said, we love eBay, we love the brand, we've been dealing business for many years. We really value our relationship with you. We really appreciate you bringing this to our attention, that we need to lift up our game, blah, 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 blah. But then towards the end of the letter, in as nice a way as possible, told them that they are complete idiots and that there's been this issue been going on for 2 months, and here's 30 different reference numbers of times we've followed up and it hasn't been fixed. And we gave them very specifics, like, here's an example, here's this item, here's the shipping method, here's a sale that was made 4 months ago, 3 months ago. This was the shipping time, nothing's changed, now it's saying 5 days. If you go to USPS website or Japan Post website, this is how long it takes. It's wrong. And eBay knew it was wrong, and we followed up all these times and nothing was done. So eventually eBay, this is about 2 weeks, right? So zero income, right? And we got, companies bleed money, right? You're paying salaries, you're paying suppliers, you're paying rent, you're paying all these things. Store fees to eBay and PayPal. And so eBay ended up reinstating the account. No apology, no explanation, just reinstated the account. Whew. Okay, well, that was a traumatic experience, but I guess, we got the account back. But the issue still was not fixed. And so we're going, well, geez, what do we do here? But, you got to keep moving as a business, right? You got to keep making money to survive. So we kept going, and, inevitably a couple of weeks later, the store gets shut down again. And that was really, I think, the moment where we thought, this could be it. This could be it. If it's happened a second time, it's going to happen a third time, it's going to happen a fourth time. And frankly, we just had enough. We really had enough of, and this is where I suppose it is, I guess, a bit of a rant, but it's important to understand eBay is truly a horrible company. And I mean, just to give you you got to put it in context, right? Your whole livelihood is on this platform. And there were just things that happened. Like, I remember the previous year, we realized that our images weren't showing, and we contacted eBay and we said, why aren't the images showing? We actually waited a day or two. We thought it was just some glitch. And they said, oh yeah, we know this is a known issue. Images are not showing. And we said, well, is there any ETA on when it's going to be fixed? They said, oh no, it's gone. They're lost. You're going to have to re-upload them. And we said, well, what do you mean they're lost? Oh, well, there was some issue and, we lost images. It impacted customers in certain regions, sellers in certain regions. We said, well, so how do we fix it? Oh, we just re-upload them. Now, we try to use all 12 images, right? We want to show customers very clearly what they're buying. So even if you just say 10,000 items, 12 images per item, that's 120,000 images. That would take a team of people weeks to upload. And eBay's just like, oh yeah, we lost it. Didn't even send us an email or say, hey, we're really sorry, here's this issue, it's impacted customers, you're an impacted customer. Just, oh yeah, you sort it out, you fix it. Didn't even tell us, right? And then there was just so many cases where, again, back to what I was saying about, the number of defects, like eBay just kind of blackmails you and bullies you, and they just accept They just force you to lose money. And it's such a hard thing because you know people are stealing from you. You know how they're doing it. And you know who they are. But you can't do anything about it. Again, I don't want to turn this into a rant, but I mean, just to give a few examples, right? There was a customer who said, I didn't get the item, open unpaid item not received case. Provided eBay the tracking, said, look, you can see it's clearly it was a US customer, it was in US customs. It's going to be released from customs in a couple of days, they'll get the item. eBay, boom, straight away, refund to the customer. Okay, waited a couple of days, customer got the item, appealed the decision, eBay rejected it. We then contacted eBay. Why did you reject it? They said, we're not answering questions because you already appealed it. Yeah, but we're asking you about that appeal. Why did you not give us the money when we proved that they did receive the item like we said we would when we showed the tracking initially? And eBay turned around and said, with the information that we had at the time, the correct decision was made. Well, no, you didn't, because you saw that it was in customs and you should have waited a couple of days. And in any case, the customer got their item, so why should we lose money? It turns out that, in fact, once eBay refund the buyer, they can't get the money back, apparently. They can if it's a seller for some reason. So if they find the case in the favor of the seller, they can overturn it and give it to the buyer. And they go, look, it's your problem. You contact the buyer and get the money back from them. We tried. You think they're going to give us the money? They've gone, hey, great, I got this item. It's like a $120 item. Great, got it for free. We had a customer who bought, I remember it was some makeup, and it's makeup designed for younger women, like university age or something. So, because it's a large Japanese cosmetics company, but they have different brands, right? So this is more for younger girls. This older lady in her 60s from the UK bought this item, and it was I think it was like $28, right? That includes shipping, everything, $28 for makeup kit. And she says, item not as described, I want a refund. We said, can you please show a photo of what you received? Because we know eBay tricks, right? They say, we don't know what they received. Can please provide a photo of what you received. They give us a photo. Then we said, can you please explain how it varies from the item list, the item page? It's exactly what the item page said, but I walked into a department store and I see they always have these nice makeup kits and they have nice boxes. They come in nice boxes. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You can go to a department store and spend $200 on a nice makeup kit, but that's not what we're selling. That's what the item... Please tell us where in the item description or the image where it gives any indication whatsoever that the item is has a nice box. And yeah, she's like, well, it doesn't, but I want a box. This is actually is literally written in eBay policy that you can't demand things that are not in the listing, right? Like you can't demand express shipping if you didn't pay for it, for example. And of course, eBay refund her. It's just crazy. There was another item. This is actually, I had on a personal level, I had this toy when I was a kid. It was called My Pal 2. It's this robot and it was sold out everywhere. My mum pulled out all stops to get this. So it had a lot of sentimental value. Anyway, I made the hard decision to sell it. In immaculate condition, right? Like 20-year-old robot, had the box, the instruction manual, looked immaculate, right? But I didn't know because it was still at my parents' house and I was overseas in Japan. So I couldn't test all the functions and stuff. So I sold it as junk status. I said assume that I actually stated on the page, nothing works, it's broken, consider it, for parts. But it was immaculate, right? So someone bought it and it turns out they said that it had this sort of wind-up arm. It was like a mechanical function. They allege, and I don't know, they allege that it was broken. Okay, fine. All the electronics worked. Everything else was immaculate. It was sold as, broken, sell it for parts. And they demanded a refund because the arm was broken, right? And of course, eBay refunded them. It broke my heart that some deadbeat got this item for free when I'd sold something that was, yeah, anyway, you get the point. And you just deal with this day in, day out. And eBay make it really, really hard for sellers because another quirk is if you list on, say, eBay US, right? So you list in US dollars, you pay your selling fees to eBay US, but let's say a customer from Germany buys your item. The dispute process goes through eBay Germany. It doesn't go through eBay US. So you contact eBay US, they say, you got to go to eBay Germany. So then you got to get up in the middle of the night. You got to deal with someone who doesn't speak English and try and resolve this. And it's madness, right? If you're the M&M store in New York and you have a customer from Germany buy an item, it's not under German consumer law, it's under US consumer law. Why? And they do that to make it as hard as they can for sellers. And then the worst thing, I think, is the systemic issues. The customers who are doing this every single transaction. We had a doctor, I remember, we tracked this guy down, a doctor on probably God knows on what money from Spain. And he said, I didn't receive the item. It turns out this guy is known in the community. It's like he bought these Star Wars figures. All these Star Wars sites are saying this guy's dodgy. Even like he'll say it's not as described, or he didn't receive it, or he tries to get every item for free. And sure enough, we contacted the sellers that had left feedback, and there's 20 of them. Every single one, yeah, this guy scammed me. He said this, he did that, and eBay don't shut these people down. And every seller, yeah, reported to eBay, did this, did that, didn't. We got him shut down, but I tell you, these things take a real toll. Like we had to spend a lot of time on this. Had plenty of customers like that. Chargebacks are another one. You can look up what they are. Just so many dodgy people out there that just are serial thieves, right? And it just wears on you. Right? It really, really wears on you and it costs you money. And the elephant in the room is I know there are people sitting there going, well, I'm a buyer, so who cares? Not my problem. It is your problem because, to use a simple example, if we're selling an item that's $50 and we make 20% profit, right? So we make $10 profit. If we sell 10 of these, right? $500 revenue, which is fine. Revenue doesn't really matter. $100 profit. That's what you really care about, right? Now, if you have one of those 10 customers, which I guarantee you will be 1 out of 10, who does something dodgy, and believe me, there's like 20 different ways that you can steal money, and even with buyers who violate eBay policy, you lose that item, so you lose $50, so your profit's halved. And if you have 2 people, it's break even. So you've done all your research on what items sell, you've taken a risk, you've bought all these items, you've found a supplier, you've listed them, you deal with all the questions and customer service side of it, you deal with all the fulfillment side of it, packing it, sending it, and then someone turns around and says, and then you end up not making any money from it. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And yeah, it just actually another good case was this buyer said he didn't receive the item. It was like a $400 item, right? It was expensive figurine. We showed the tracking, won the case. The guy then opens an item not received, an item not described. Okay, how is it not described? So firstly, you've proven that you're lying because you're saying, well, I did actually get it, but it wasn't as described. So, okay, please describe how it was not what you have a problem with, right? No photos, no explanation, no description, nothing. So we said to eBay, well, this is a violation of eBay policy because one, item not described has to be made within 30 days of receiving it. This was like 50 days after. Secondly, he's already opened a case which was item not received. You can't open 2 different cases for the same transaction. That's also in the eBay policy. And he hasn't provided any details as to why it's not described. So how can we answer it? There's no photos, there's no explanation. eBay, no questions asked, boom, there's a refund. $400 item stolen from us. That's how eBay works, right? So I go back to, I know I'm jumping around a bit, but we're sitting here going, eBay are just rogues, right? They're just assholes. We don't want to deal with eBay anymore. And, we've got all these, and now we've got this issue of they're just like shutting our account down at a moment's notice. And so that was it. We made the decision to, to close it down. It just wasn't worth the risk of, making all this big investment and just being at the mercy of these corporate bullies, eBay, PayPal, and they are bullies. There's actually a case, and I'll link it in the description. This older couple in America who ran like an e-commerce blog. And they started getting death threats and people spying on them. I won't go into it. Just watch the video if you're interested. It turns out that they had posted just a post, because it's public information, what eBay executives earn. And the eBay executives were so upset that they published this, that they hired like this private investigations company to like intimidate and provide death threats to this company. It was on 60 Minutes in the US. Unbelievable. Right? And they are grossly overpaid. There's some of these executives are on like 60, 70 million US. It's like 100 million Australian. The top executives in Australia, you work for the top companies, the largest companies, you're on probably like 4 or 5 million. And most of that's in equities anyway, it's not cash. It's madness. And you go, how is eBay a good company? They haven't evolved. Like, give them credit, right? They saw an opportunity. They developed market share in the like late 90s, early noughties, but they haven't evolved as a company. Amazon have massively. eBay hasn't. It's still the same crummy company. And, it's kind of nice to see other companies eat into their market share, right? So, yeah, and then we did create our own store. That's what you can see, but it just takes too long to... We'd been burnt by that because we actually opened... Another thing I have to talk about is Shopify. So we had created our own store a few years earlier because we'd sort of even then kind of had enough of eBay. And the problem with Shopify was we had this cosmetic, which was made by Shiseido, which is a large, very reputable Japanese cosmetics company. And Shopify, again, no notice, no explanation, said, oh, you're selling Shuedo Pharmaceuticals, so you can't accept payments. You can keep your store and pay fees to us, but you can't accept payments. And we just spent months building this website. It was madness. And you go online, you see all these people writing comments about, I was selling fish hooks for fishing, and, Shopify shut me down because they said I was selling weapons. And you can't appeal it. You can't get it overturned. There's no dialogue. There's no customer service team. Nothing, right? So we'd already been burnt by that. And yeah, so here we are in 2019. I think it's just... And look, looking back now, I realize running a store, running your own business is it's very fulfilling. And I feel very proud of it. But it is hard work. I mean, it really is hard work. And I mean, let me just give you some round numbers, just as an example, right? Let's say that I'm going to be a bit conservative, right? Let's say that you want to earn, I don't know, 100,000 Australian dollars. So that's like 60,000 US dollars, right? But let's say $100,000, right? If you want to make $100,000 for a business and you operate on a 10% profit margin, that means you have to make $1 million in sales, right? $1 million in sales. Now, if you're selling, let's say, a figurine that you sell for $50, right? Then how many figurines do you have to sell to make $1 million in revenue? Right? It's a big number. I'm trying to do the maths in my head. It's like 200, 2,000, 20,000? Is it 20,000? Or is it two? Yeah, it'd be 20,000. 20,000, right? You'd have to sell 20,000 figurines. So that means that if it's 20,000 and you operate 365 days a year, that's about 55, bit over 50, right? It's probably about 55 figurines a day. All day, every day. Christmas Day, Easter, New Year's Day, doesn't matter. 55 figurines a day that you have to sell. Yeah? Now, as an example, if it takes you 10 minutes to pack an item, especially a figurine, you put bubble wrap and put it in a box and a label and all that sort of stuff, you could pack 6 an hour. So how long would it take you just to pack 55 figurines a day? It'd take you 9 hours, right? So you're on this treadmill, right? 365 days a year, right? 9 hours just packing, right? Forget all the other stuff, answering emails, going to the post office, creating new listings, the whole financial side of it. It is a lot of work, right? And then you don't get paid annual leave, you don't get paid superannuation as a business owner. Your staff will, of course. But so you need to pay your staff all that. You got to pay insurance in case your staff get injured. You pay office space, warehouse space, the whole thing, right? It's a big risk. And it's a lot of hard work. It really is blood, sweat, and tears. And then you have these big corporates just completely wipe you out, right? We had just so much stock. It financially pretty much ruined me because we had all this stock, right? And had to let staff go. And even after 4 years, I don't think I'm ready to talk about all that stuff, but it was, I just made the decision that I had to cut eBay out of my life. It was like a cancer. And I was just so, I don't want to talk about emotion, but yeah, let me just say that I promised myself that I would never, ever, 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 ever give eBay another cent. And I have lived by that. I don't even buy stuff on eBay anymore because that, indirectly gives them money. And just to show how vicious eBay is, I had a personal account. And, at the time that all this happened, and I made that decision, right, I'm cutting eBay out of my life. And I owed them $10 in selling fees from a couple of things that I'd sold. And I thought, you know what, screw them, I'm not paying them. These guys and we took eBay to court, right? And they literally should have paid us at least hundreds of thousands of dollars in compensation for what they did in terms of the financial damage. And it was just totally avoidable, right? We'd done nothing wrong. And they're chasing for $10 and they hire debt collectors, calling every day, emailing every day, just hounding us. That's actually against the law. Debt collectors can't contact you more than 3 times a week and every day hounding us for $10. It was humorous, actually. It's this is how petty and sinister this company actually is. And, even just dealing with, even just to show, we were dealing with eBay's lawyers, right? And, one of the lawyers, I'm not going to mention the company or the name, we looked into this guy. He actually defended Archbishop Powell, who was this archbishop in Australia, and he was convicted for rape and sexual abuse of young males, right? So convicted. And the main guy who was eBay's lawyer's representative was this same guy who was representing this pedophile and this rapist. And this guy had even been quoted in the media. There are families, who had their sons commit suicide over the abuse and the trauma that they experienced. And this guy is in the media saying, oh, they're exaggerating it. Their child committed suicide. How can you exaggerate that? And this is just how crappy. These are the kind of people that eBay associate themselves with. I know it's a very dark email and probably not what you expected uh, on this channel. But yeah, I'm just literally, guys, I'm just scratching the surface here. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. So anyway, you get the picture. There's so much more I could talk about and reveal, but I think you just get the picture of, we just had enough of dealing with eBay and with PayPal. And just quickly as well, you might say, well, why not deal with Amazon? Amazon wouldn't have worked for our business because Amazon's very segregated. Amazon US is Amazon US. Amazon Japan is Amazon Japan. If you search for an item on Amazon Japan or Amazon US, if it's only available in Amazon Japan, it won't show up. So they really are siloed. eBay is it is more integrated because you can search something on eBay, say UK, and it will also show listings from other sites. So eBay is a bit weird because they're sort of separate, but they're sort of connected. Amazon is very separate, right? And by the way, there's no eBay Japan. They got their ass kicked because they're such a crappy company. They tried, but yeah, didn't work out. So that's why, and given that we were an exporting business, right? We're based in Japan, selling abroad. It just wouldn't have really worked. So that's why we made the tough call of shutting down Figuring Out Japan. It was horrendous. It was, really a good 6 months of just winding it all up. And I think this is certainly how I felt. It was as if somebody ran over my child and dumped the dead body on my doorstep, and I just had to step over this dead body all day, every day, trying to wind it all up. And the sad thing was, it was just, eBay were never held to account. Or we did, there was a like minuscule settlement, and I just couldn't psychologically deal with dragging this out for a couple of years. It really was like a cancer. I just had to cut eBay out of my life. And yeah, that's what happened. Figuring Out Japan was my baby. I created it out of nothing. It's still one of my proudest achievements in life. There were I don't want to get emotional, and even just letting people go, it was tough, and then soon after that, of course, COVID happened, and yeah. So anyway, long story short, that's what happened, and I don't, Figuring Out Japan is not in operation anymore. It was a really tough time. I suffered from severe insomnia, so that's why I guess on the channel, back to what this channel is all about. So, we used to review figurines as a way to show people the product, just a better way to, show people very clearly what they're buying. Obviously, those videos stopped. You might see like sort of, sleep music or insomnia, music, because I actually put them on to help me sleep, because as I said, I was just so churned up and so upset about everything that happened, and it just was a way to try to help me with my insomnia. And then I guess you sort of didn't see much on the channel. I guess that sort of then sort of warped into like some video game music, and but anyway, it's been 4 years now, and for the first time I've actually bought a couple of figurines, and sort of not running the business again, but I feel it's time to sort of turn over a new leaf and kind of put it to bed. So I guess this was kind of a eulogy video. I know this has already been a long video. Please let me know in the comments if you're interested if you want to know any more stuff about, maybe good stuff, positive things about, how you should build an e-commerce store, how you should run a business, or even just living in Japan, my experiences. Even maybe if you have disputes or issues with PayPal, eBay, how to get around those. I probably won't make videos like that unless people are interested in it. But yeah, I do want to say very, very sincerely from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everybody who has supported Figuring Out Japan over the years. One thing that we never, ever, ever lost sight of, no matter how big you get, is that every single customer counts. Every single customer should be valued, right? And eBay they've lost this. They're like, yeah, we're a multi-billion-dollar business. Anybody is like insignificant to us. But I remember starting a business when you got like one sale a week, and it just meant the world. And you're like, wow, this person actually is deciding to buy from me. And then that turns into 2 sales a week and 3 sales a week, and all of a sudden you're making a sale a day and 2 sales a day and 3 sales a day, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this could actually, I could turn this from not just a hobby, I could actually turn this into a legitimate business. And then you start, and it just grows and grows and grows, and you become quite big. And yeah, but you can never ever lose sight of the numbers and the summaries, right? You have to remember every single customer has decided to trust you and put their hard-earned money to purchase from you. And that always really, really, really meant a lot. And it's something that we really valued. So thank you very much. I hope you continue to support the channel, the YouTube channel anyway. That's kind of my shrine, if you like, to Figuring Out Japan. It meant a lot to me if anyone left a comment and said, like, yeah, I bought from you and I really, loved Figuring Out Japan. So I'll leave the video there. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video on the channel.